104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio today. It is Dark Side of the Stream episode.
Whoa, that was
171. How'd you like that?
It looks so little. It looks
now
so small.
We're cute. Well, it's because
you're massive, and I look so small.
Well, it's because you got like
if
10
I adjust,
feet
I know what's
between
going to
you
happen. That's what's going to happen. I knew it.
Then he's messing around.
Wait, all right. Oh, gosh. Now I lost the whole screen. Okay, there you are. I'm back, baby.
So today is episode 171 of Dark Side of the Stream. It was my pick this week, a new documentary that's been in the top 10 on Netflix for the last several weeks. It's called American Nightmare, involving a kidnapping case that happened in California in 2015. It was almost, I guess the word would be serendipitous, that they did this whole thing in 3 parts, which is, gosh, Jay, these 3, he's like, oh, I'm ready. And it's like, no, you're not ready.
Well,
anyway,
yeah, it was good. The 3 parts. It was good.
3 parts, so we can do this thing in 3 parts too. Perfect. So I thought, and that the way they did this, the makers of this documentary, to do it that way was perfect, because it tells 3 different versions of the story, which starts with the boyfriend. Basically, he calls the police one night and he says, or I guess early morning hours, I was just attacked and assaulted in my home and my girlfriend was kidnapped. Scary situation. Yeah. Right. And in the middle of the kidnapping, he basically says, oh my goodness, this isn't the one. You weren't the one I was looking for. Yeah, I'm actually looking for your ex-girlfriend.
That was weird. Which
was also very, very strange. And still to this day, they don't know why that guy said that. They still don't know. I wonder if that girlfriend had something to do with it. But did you, right out of the gate, did you know anything about this case?
Not at all.
I didn't either. So which is great. Did you know that, when you're watching the boyfriend, were you like, oh, this guy's BS, I don't believe him? Or were you like,
well, his story was insane. Yeah, it's like,
but yes, the story is insane. But watching him in the police videos and the arrest, all that stuff, and then of course in the interview by himself, did you not like? How did you feel? Did you believe him? What were you feeling?
I was like, it sure seems like he's. I mean, how would you make this up? It's a wacky thing to make up, but you seem like he's believable, but. It was a lot to try and buy.
The
story's a lot to buy.
From a law of enforcement perspective, it is a lot to digest and to at least believe. But in this country, it's innocent until proven guilty, and you need to let the evidence speak for itself, right?
Now,
and if this guy's saying like, "Hey, he installed this camera in the corner of my room," and there's a camera in the corner of my room.
Yeah, but that sounds so unbelievable too.
He's telling you all these things, right. And it's like,
I know.
What's his gain?
The
kid was well off.
Have you ever been in an interrogation room like that, being interrogated by detectives?
Do you really? Okay, yeah. Yes.
I'm going to assume the answer is yes. I mean,
there was an incident when I was younger that I did get arrested for in Kansas. We won't get too much into it, but I was taken into one of those rooms.
When you're in those rooms, it's
awful.
Even if you're telling the truth,
it was awful.
If you're telling the truth, you're still so nervous and
God.
Like
I was dead.
Like this sucks, dude.
I can still remember it. It's a bad
It's
scene.
a very stressful situation being in that room.
And to see what those guys, the Vallejo Police Department and the FBI put this guy through.
Oh.
Trying to break him down, lying
to
to him about the results of the lie detector test, and just no, we know you did it. 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 Until, well, all of a sudden,
to break you.
The girl just appears.
Oh, that was the crazy.
And then they have to pivot, because up until this point, for the last 48, 72 hours,
she's dead.
boyfriend. I can't think of anything else. It's you. And then the girlfriend appears. It's like, wait a minute. It's not you, bro. It's her. It's like, wait a minute, guys. You don't have any clue because you don't have any evidence. So it comes down to this. I love what our police do. Our men and women, my aunt's a detective, retired cop. Don't get me wrong. It has nothing to do with like against police. It is, there are bad people that do bad at their jobs. And this documentary did such a good job of not just painting a picture of an awful police department with a bad culture. And that's Vallejo, California. I'll say that all day. That culture is awful. Yeah. Because then you see another culture in Dublin, California, where they did everything by the book and went the extra mile
to try and solve it.
So it's not a question of good. It's not a question of bad cops here. It's a question of bad culture, bad people that are bad at their job, that are willing to die on the sword so they don't have to so they can save face and cost all these people just I was so angry.
Literally a nightmare. Yeah. Literally
And the
nightmare.
fact that the kidnapper told this guy, "I'll contact you." He tells the police he's going to contact me. He hands a cell phone over, and they put it in airplane mode.
Yeah, why? That was the weird. Why would you do that?
Because they're bad at their job. Which, by the way, if they kept it off and listened to what he had to say, the kidnapper tried to call twice. They could have traced the phone call, and that woman wouldn't have been raped the second time.
Yep.
Just because the cops were bad at their job. Again, thank you to the Dublin Police Department for doing your job. I'm going to say that probably 1,000 times in this episode of Dark Side of the Stream. All day, we're discussing American Nightmare. We'll be back next on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 171, American Nightmare on Netflix. Okay, so as we mentioned in the last segment, they did a really good job of separating this into 3 episodes. The first one was the boyfriend, which we discussed. Second one is the girlfriend, Denise, and what she went through.
So then at first I thought it was the guy, the boyfriend. Then I go, okay, no, it was the girlfriend. It's like it was really well told. It makes you think everybody's guilty here.
For about 2 seconds, because then she starts telling the story, and you're like, oh, everything she says matches up with the boyfriend. So either they're in cahoots for whatever reason, or
I thought that too.
But again, that doesn't make any sense. This kid he came from money. Like
the story is so wacky that it's like it was so crazy.
Sometimes, and the bad timing of this is it happened right after Gone Girl came out, which is literally by the book what actually happened in the story. And again, yes, you can say that maybe life was imitating art, but at the same time, it's art, and you can't just say, well, because we saw this movie, this is exactly what these guys are doing. Because that's exactly what the Vallejo cops were saying.
But that's what they did. Right?
It blows my mind that they would, instead of taking these victims face value and saying, look, we understand this is a crazy story, but we need to have all the facts before we make any decisions. Like anything that we think or force right now is speculation because we don't have any evidence to go either way. So it's kind of like, man, I don't know. But anyway, she goes through a story, which is horrific. She had been assaulted already in her life 2 times when she was 12 and 19. And this was the toughest thing for me, to hear her tell a story about how she was assaulted when she was 12. Didn't think anyone would believe her. And then that person went on to kill another little girl, which is just horrific. So she lives with that guilt. She's 19. She's getting drunk at a party, gets assaulted again. This time she decides, I'm going to say something, goes to the police department. And the police guy says, it's going to be a he said, she said thing. You probably shouldn't do it. And so she leaves. 2 times in her life, she's assaulted and she doesn't do anything. This time she does, and they don't believe her. They actually start to say, you did this yourself, and we're going to throw the book at you.
Insane.
Have a press conference basically calling them out, saying that they wasted all the resources of the community. Well, Vallejo Police Department, who actually wasted the resources? Were it these people who were victims of a kidnapping, or you who had to pay $2.5 million out of court because you are bad at your job?
Can you imagine you go to the police and then they're not believing you and they're not doing anything? You're like, you need to go and do something.
Which, by the way, all the people in the Vallejo Police Department didn't lose their jobs. They still either are currently employed, and the federal employees who are in the FBI, who should have also done their due diligence, still have their job too.
Crazy, man.
Bottom line is, if these people didn't have money, we probably never would have heard about this, and it would just went away.
Yeah.
But thank God for the Dublin Police Department and a very young female detective who was doing her job.
She went the extra mile.
Went the extra mile to put all of these things together and figure out who did this crime. We'll get to that next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 171, discussing American Nightmare on Netflix. So before we did this, I had to call my dad. yesterday because I had to get all my anger out because you know how I get sometimes.
You get very passionate, as you can
And
tell,
obviously,
everybody.
you know, like I always say, I'm a big proponent of our law enforcement, our first responders. My aunt's a retired detective. I love our veterans. Obviously, they have a very tough job, and I would support them any and every way I can. With that said, there are people in this world that are bad at their job, and that includes people in the justice system, politicians, judges, police officers, federal agents. Time and time again, it happens. That's just the problem with the justice system is that humans are fallible. We all are. Every single one of us. Who controls the justice system? Human beings. And every now and then, it's not going to go right because we are fallible. And that's a tough thing to swallow, but it's the fact. So the other thing I wanted to mention was the Vallejo, California, the police department, awful at their job. Every single one of them. Every step was just bad.
Yeah, it was a bunch
you
of
could see it across the board.
Missteps.
They ended up paying $2.5 million out of pocket to these people because they were bad at their job. Dublin Police Department, because of their culture, were really good at their job.
There's so many things had to line up, man, for this lady to figure this
and
out.
Also,
it was incredible.
So basically, what ends up happening is another break-in that's very similar to the one that happened to this couple. When it ends up going wrong for the guy, they end up figuring out he leaves a cell phone there. They call the number, dude's mom picks up or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, guy lost his phone. Where's he at? Oh, he's in my cell phone."
What an odd criminal too, because he felt bad that they weren't believing the girl, so he started writing letters to the reporters saying, "You need to believe her."
I want to say the San Francisco Chronicle for a second. We'll get to that in a second.
Man,
because they're also the media is also big time to blame for this because that reporter saying, "Could I have done something different?" Yeah, you could have.
Yeah.
Just like the Vallejo Police Department, you could have waited and said, "Are we victim shaming here?"
Find the facts first.
And you guys were like, "Well, I just did what."
Trying to get the story out.
You screwed up these people's lives for years. Because they were battling with the FBI, like saying they still were on suspects up until they basically handed them the evidence and said, "No, actually, here's this girl's hair in this guy's house."
Which they wouldn't even take that at first. You know, they were like, "Oh, send it to us, we'll see." And she's like, "No, I'm coming up there."
Dude,
it's true, man.
Thank God for the Dublin Police Department.
Yeah, it was wild.
Not for that detective and their due diligence and doing their job the right way. We would probably never heard about this, and this couple would have been dealing with hell. But inevitably, they tied the two crimes together. That guy got sentenced to 40 years. They ended up getting married. They've got two beautiful kids together. I teared up when he said, as long as those little girls grow up to be like their mom, they'll be all right. I was watery-eyed like a baby because that dude, what they went through.
Yeah, it was
I can't even imagine.
Incredible story.
Having to go through that just as a victim and then having to fight to prove that, yeah, in fact, I was sexually assaulted or my girlfriend was kidnapped from my home while we were sleeping. It's like a double slap in the face.
It was crazy. It's crazy. It was crazy. I watched it twice because it was just so nuts.
It's just a crazy story. We'll get back with our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The K. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 171, discussing American Nightmare on Netflix. So how many swimming goggles would you give this documentary?
Duct tape swimming goggles?
Yeah.
What's the best rating is 5, right? That's
the
best we give out. I'm going to go 4.5.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm not going to have a point is because the producers of the show failed. They dropped the ball. They should have closed it out in the credits with American Nightmare, the song from Ice Nine Kills. The show is called American Nightmare. They should have closed it out with American Nightmare. They dropped the ball big time. Or somebody didn't want to pay. I don't know. But
yeah, song publishing is expensive, and it can be.
They would have had a perfect rating. They would have had a perfect rating.
Would have been. And maybe in the band could have said, this isn't the kind of association we want with the song. It doesn't make, you never know.
Yeah, we write songs about death.
Maybe the producer didn't like it. Maybe they didn't like the song.
Maybe it's too heavy. I don't know.
I definitely give it a solid 4 for sure. Maybe 5, but
really good. Really well done too. Short
so
and an amazing story.
Yeah, really good. All right, Jay, it's your turn next week. What are we watching?
Well, it sucks because you were so passionately heated on this one. I know next week I'm going to get you passionately heated again, because if there's one thing you hate, it's these kind of guys. The show is called Bitconned on Netflix. Bitconned. And it's about a guy who did some scamming. Yeah, you love those scammer guys.
Oh, I do.
Those
but
rich, pretty boy
it'll be
scammer
nice,
guys.
It'll
You
be
love
nice
them.
to relive your time.
Yeah, those was a wild time,
yeah.
man. I was part of the scene, and it was this dives into the scene
I
for
can't
sure.
wait to relive those every day. Jake.
You're gonna be very mad. You're gonna be very mad.
Ethereum, dude, it's just through the roof.
You're gonna be mad. You're gonna be mad about this guy for sure. You're gonna be mad about this kid.
BitCon. You can watch Dark Side of the Stream every Thursday 9 a.m. or anytime you want, really, on YouTube or Facebook Live is when we start that, or you can listen to it as a podcast for free on our 104.7 The Cave app. During my show at 9 a.m. or Jay's show at 6 p.m. I am Mike the Intern. That's Jay Stevens reminding you
we watch
movies,
documentaries.
so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.